Once again, summer has given us a glimpse into the future of gaming. Even if the industry lost its big E3 convention in Los Angeles, and some publishers might not always show up during this time anymore, such as Nintendo this year, other developers still paint a pretty clear picture of what's coming. And frankly, it's left me feeling surprisingly positive. Actually, if it were only the new Summer Game Fest, the opposite would be true, because that had to be one of the most dire gaming previews in quite some time, but we'll get to that. However, platform holders like PlayStation and Xbox showed a much more promising outlook for third-party developers. All these mid-budget or weird-looking games are what the industry needs. Some people might have been disappointed that we didn't see too many big cinematic games announced. But that's the point. The Western AAA industry is imploding right now with these enormous photorealistic looking titles which take half a decade or even longer to make and therefore either play it painfully safe or nickel and dime the players as live service games. No doubt nothing will beat Fortnite in revenue and GTA 6 will dominate 2026. But all the games chasing these same trends without hitting the jackpot are becoming unsustainable, proven by a never-ending series of studio shutdowns. The Summer Game Fest was like an epitome of that. It had too many CG trailers with little substance for shooters and action RPGs that all feel the same, on top of a plethora of new live service games. Actually, there's not that much to say here. Most of these live service projects are bound to fail, sad as it is. However, one of the strangest moments was one developer coming on stage to openly lambast Call of Duty and claim that the shooter genre consists of slop these days, only to introduce a completely ordinary live service shooter himself. Also, these product shows by Jeff Keighley, be it the Summer Game Fest or the Game Awards, really don't need to be multiple hours long. Sony and Microsoft did a much better job of promoting their games at a fast pace while focusing on concrete gameplay for a diverse set of featured games. Some of these weird and colorful titles, in particular from Japan, might not become the biggest mainstream hits, but as an old school fan, these summer gaming conferences showed exactly what I'm looking for from proper console gaming, which is a wide variety of unique titles from industry veterans, each with a distinct style. During this generation, there has been an influx of articles and essays lamenting the absence of the AA industry and smaller scale projects. But here they are, and actually they've already been back since midway through the PS4 generation. Japan especially has found a much better rhythm, delivering quality titles consistently without overspending. One pleasant surprise was the return of Nioh. I wasn't a big fan of Rise of the Ronin, which combined Team Ninja's Souls-like combat with a Ubisoft-style open world full of icon chasing and walking and talking sections, because I preferred Nioh's tighter focus on the combat scenarios. So when they announced that Nioh 3 would be open world, I was hesitant, but the demo erased my fears. This seems to be Team Ninja's answer to Elden Ring, where the open world feels more like a big labyrinth than an icon checklist. Nioh 3 is like their 6th Souls-like already, but thankfully each title has its own spin, which seems like the smartest approach to these sequels. Use existing assets to make new titles with a different gameplay focus. Whereas Nioh 2 was all about demon transformations, this relies on switching between a samurai and a ninja mode on the fly, and so far the new mobility does make it stand out. On that note, it's great that amidst this new wave of action RPGs, Team Ninja also found the time to focus on Ninja Gaiden again. The second game in particular, which they recently remade, featured one of the best combat systems of all time. So I'm looking forward to where they take it with Platinum Games with their 4th game. It looks like a different take on Ninja Gaiden, but the new trailer sold me on the idea and I'm sure it will at least be a good ninja game, regardless of brand accuracy. The new 2D iteration by the developers of Blasphemous will likely be very good too, though I'm personally looking forward to the new Shinobi a bit more, since platformers with pixel art have gotten a little stale by now. Another thing that caught me off guard was a new game in the Bloodstained series, which, if you didn't know, is the spiritual successor to Castlevania, created by series veteran Koji Igarashi. The first game was on par with his past efforts, but suffered a little from a small Kickstarter budget. The new title looks much more refined in its visual style and production values, to the point that I thought that this was a new Castlevania from Konami during the announcement in the PlayStation State of Play livestream. The game might have to battle it out with Hollow Knight Silksong, but thankfully the eager style of the Metroidvania genre is pretty different from Hollow Knight, so there shouldn't be any burnout. I prefer 2D graphics, but in my opinion, the stylized 2.5D of this new Bloodstained is about as good as this style can look, at least with a lower budget. Metroid Dread and Prince of Persia Lost Crown, which I very much appreciated, didn't have mind-blowing graphics either. As a side note, the Yakuza team deserves recognition for their crazy efficiency. They somehow managed to release a huge turn-based Yakuza RPG, a full-fledged pirate action title, and also Super Monkey Ball within like a year. Now the name of their next IP has been revealed as Stranger Than Heaven, and it looks very intriguing once again. The combat seems to go for that early Yakuza style, however the setting apparently aims for an ambitious plot that spans multiple decades. I have no doubt that they can pull this off. Another surprise was Beast of Reincarnation from Game Freak, the developers of Pokemon, showing up with a next-gen title at the Xbox show. Considering that Pokemon has recently been known for extremely low production values and glitchy releases, I don't think anyone saw a full-fledged Game Freak action RPG coming, especially one that looks on par with clear inspirations like Sekiro or Nier Automata. Aside from the choppy frame rate, which is the only giveaway that this is the Pokemon team. I'm not sure whether I would have been interested in this title if it wasn't for the developer, but that alone certainly puts it on the map for me. The Capcom streak seems to continue, even if they had a few stumbles here and there recently in my opinion. We've seen the combat of the new Onimusha a lot by now, so the new trailer didn't do much for me. At this point I just want to know whether they will keep the Resident Evil style game structure of the past, because considering how many samurai games we get, Onimusha needs something like that to stick out. Speaking of which, there's really not much you can take from the Resident Evil 9 teaser, so I want to take the moment and applaud Capcom for their trolling efforts, which began with the announcement of Resident Evil 7 way back in the day. After the multiplayer spectacle of RE6, no one expected a new horror-focused game in the franchise anymore. All the bigger the shock when Resident Evil 7 was a smaller scaled project, fully focused on intense first-person horror. I still remember how absolutely no one saw that Resident Evil logo at the end of its initial trailer coming, especially since it was based on a VR tech demo called Kitchen, which seemingly had nothing to do with Capcom. After that, the trailer of the RE2 remake, which went into radio silence for years, was also very cryptic before eventually revealing the main character Leon as Kennedy, which then immediately made it clear what the title was. A similar format was used for the RE3 remake, which showed a cryptic first-person sequence, something you wouldn't expect for that project at all because nothing like that was in the original title, before eventually revealing protagonist Jill Valentine. RE Village tried to pull the same trick as RE7, saving the title reveal for the very last second. At this point though, that spiel of playing tricks on the viewers seemed to wear thin, especially because the contents of that Village trailer were leaked before. After that, the heavily rumored RE4 remake practically kicked the door down by dropping its title right in your face during the live stream before it even started. So the era of Capcom trying to troll RE fans seemed to be over. But at Summer Game Fest they did it again. After being, once again, heavily rumored to appear, Capcom barely gave a development update on RE9, claiming it would still take a blink of an eye for the final reveal, which led the entire internet to believe that this was all there is to it, until the very end, when yet another unusual trailer all of a sudden had that Resident Evil logo appear at the end. Bravo. It's been some time since we've gotten a solid sci-fi shooter from Japan, so it's good that Capcom finally seems to be on track to release Pragmata, one of the first games announced for the PS5 years back, which finally came out of development hell. I'm expecting very polished and creative gunplay just because Capcom has a very good track record right now, though I'm not sure about the apparent focus on a story. I could be wrong, but anything with a child side character usually tries a bit too hard to be a tearjerker down the line, but we'll see. Speaking of third-person shooters from Japan, it seems Suda51 is finally following up on Shadows of the Damned with a new IP called Romeo is a Dead Man. Despite being cheeky and misleading during the announcement trailer, I suspected that this would be a Suda aka Grasshopper game pretty early on, because it's very much in line with his very weird style of humor and punk aesthetics seen in his most recent games. I don't think he will ever produce anything that will reach his early efforts, like Killer 7 or No More Heroes for me personally, and it's also clear that this will not be a game with high ratings. The gameplay doesn't look very smooth, but this might deliver the kind of wild and wacky button mashing action that has been absent for a little too long. The return of some 3D platformers is also very welcome. Even though that paper gimmick isn't anything new in the genre, Hero Ogami by Namco still looks pretty refreshing and polished. Besides that, I didn't expect a shiny 3D version of Meat Boy to show up at Xbox, which looks like a surprisingly great translation of classic trial and error side-scrolling into 3D. It's been a while since a big hardcore 3D platformer came out, probably since Crash Bandicoot 4, so I'm all in. Also, here's the thing about some of the other indie announcements at the Summer Game Fest. I've watched enough Jeff Keighley shows to know that a lot of these smaller titles never show up again, either because the marketing budget runs out or they turn out to be vaporware or whatever, while at Xbox you can be sure that something like Meat Boy will come out, and I can't wait to try it. On Silent Hill F, I'm a little ambivalent. I did not expect the Silent Hill 2 remake to be as good as it was, and it became one of my favorites in 2024. On the other hand, the track record of this series' comeback is still spotty, with all the other new releases being either middling or straight up bad. It seems to follow the remake of 2 in level design and puzzle design, but relying entirely on close encounters with steel pipes and crowbars has often fallen flat in other games. Also, I don't really associate Silent Hill with heavy gore, so I'm not sure about this focus on dead body parts. I'm not huge on fighting games because as much as I tried, I just can't get a grasp on the controls, even though I think that the genre has some of the most engaging aesthetics and gameplay to offer, which seems to be just as true for Marvel Fighting Souls. It might sound strange, but I very much appreciate that this kind of game exists, more so than the next Marvel open world game actually, even if it will be near unplayable for me. Same goes for Luminous Arise. I'm too inept for this kind of puzzle game, but the industry needs more work from veterans like Mitsuguchi who go for something different. However, I might actually dive into the Mortal Kombat collection, because it seems to be in line with recent efforts like the Atari and Tetris collections that combine the classics with a digital documentary style exhibition, which is a great concept for retro releases. Also, while preservation is still way behind, at the very least some of the biggest classics like Final Fantasy Tactics are becoming legally available again, which was also pretty good news. Either way, I don't think this generation will top the last for me, especially since the second half of that one felt more innovative and risk-taking, but I very much appreciate this new wave of old school experiences in a fresh coat of paint. I don't need monthly AAA cinematic productions. It's sad to see still so many devs riding into their doom by banking on live service clones, but that doesn't take away from the strong lineup of unique single-player content we're getting, especially from Japan at mid-budget publishers. 2024 was already impressive in that regard, and the momentum seems to gain traction again after an early lull this year.